Cool beans. Awesome. What's up? What's up, world? Yo, got a question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had someone walk into a room that may have been a bit dark and gloomy, and this person decided to do all kinds of jokes and everything, and just been like, dude, read the room, right? What's up with these people, right? So today we're talking emotional intelligence. And we're talking about it from a bunch of different angles. And once again, as always, we've got the wonderful, wonderful panel. Kelly J, Marcia, Johans, and Kyra.
So,
We've got a bunch of celebrations to do today. But we really want to shout out Miss Kyra. She has grandmothered some of the most beautiful twins in the world over the last couple of days. So we want to say congratulations.
Well, thank you so
hey,
much.
congrats. Smooth right
That
there.
is amazing. That is amazing. Populating the world, and hopefully growing their emotional intelligence.
No, that's right.
Right, right.
So look, y'all ready to dive in?
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Awesome,
Let's
awesome.
go.
Cool beans, cool beans. So I mean, I I had to do some reading on this one for some time. And I heard this term years and years ago, emotional intelligence. And I read a book on it years and years ago. And it was really geared towards sort of kind of a step-by-step process to certain things for me at which that I kind of looked at it in this particular realm, right? And I started to it helped shape and mold me in business, in corporate America, and in a lot of different ways. And I would say turned me into a good listener, right? So I purposely didn't give you what my definition of it is, because I kind of want to hear what y'all's is, right? Tell me when you hear emotional intelligence, when did you when did you first learn about it, become aware of it? No, when did you first learn about it, and then tell me when you really realized you were aware of it, and what is it to you?
That's a loaded question. It's like 10 questions in one, but I love it. I love it. Wow. So I feel like when I was younger, so I'm the baby of my family. And a lot of the times everybody's like, oh, the baby gets spoiled, and it's just like not me. And so like I remember even as a child, like that term read the room, like I was literally told that as a child. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, everybody's in a room. I come in, just one particular, incident that I can remember. Like I come in, I'm just like, okay, I want somebody to play with. You know what I'm saying? And people, I don't know what the mood was, but I wanted to play. And my older sister's like, they have a nickname. I'm not gonna say my nickname because that's here nor there. But they was like, go over there and play. Can't you see that we over here busy? Like, can't you just read the room? Can't you see that don't nobody want to play with you? And I was just like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, feelings hurt, not knowing what that really meant, you know what I'm saying? But that was the first time that, somebody said read the room, right? Really, really kind of like telling me to like just stay focused in that space. And so I didn't know. But as an adult, I have to seriously fast forward to an adult, probably in college, where, I didn't realize it, but my personality is more geared towards soft skills and not necessarily geared towards, I guess like one might be an engineer or something like that, where their mind is just, a little bit more, I guess, complex. And so mine is just more like geared towards soft skills and kind of like, feeling people out. And always like to say your energy, right? So, just feeling people's energy and stuff out. And I've always been good with that. And if I feel like the energy is off, I'm kind of like, let me fall back a little bit. But if I feel like the energy is live, I kind of add to it. But also getting to the point where I'm trying to actually bring good energy and sort of change the temperature of the room. Um, I'm gonna let everybody go before I give my definition because I have, what I feel like the definition of emotional intelligence is, and it might be on par with everybody else. I don't know, but I'm gonna let somebody else pick up the mic and go ahead and jump in.
Okay, ladies.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I have this written down. So emotional intelligence for me is like the ability to think twice and speak once, to be able
Mm,
to identify your emotions and and analyze the situation that you're in, but then like knowing how and what emotions to use in that situation. Like I growing up, I kind of heard like, yeah, exactly that. Speak twice, think once. Like think about what you're saying before. And I've had to learn it. Um, like I didn't understand it as a young child, and like I would just be like, okay, well maybe that just means like I don't need to be saying anything right now, because it's like, well, like the first, I feel like if my first thought isn't what should be said, then what is it? But then it's kind of growing up, being in different situations, being around different people. Yeah, I have kind of learned and started to realize like how important it is to be able to do these things.
I like that. I like that. And what's that phrase again, real quick? Because I want to make sure I'm taking it.
Think twice and speak once.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it used to come out when I was younger as if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it at all.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, hold on. But
That's
now
what's up.
I just kind of like expanded it a little bit more.
I got you. I got you.
And I strongly agree with that, Kelly. Um, I would say my definition is probably along those lines, but that's just always been my personality as far as, and not that it's always the best, it just depends, but I internalize a lot of things. So I am that person that will, okay, when something happens, I'm gonna sit there for a minute and process before something comes out. That's just the way I've always handled things. And there are times when you might need to react a little quicker. I'm not gonna say that's always the best reaction, but that's pretty much always been my reaction. And I think that's a good definition that you gave, is to really sit back and think about it for a second, and just kind of figure out. It's kind of hard to say figure out, because it's not that you always should give the reaction that you think the other person wants. That's not the point. It's just that you need to put some thought behind what's going to come out your mouth. That's it. And make sure that you're really saying what you mean, and not just giving an emotional response, because sometimes someone can really press your button and something will fly out of your mouth and you're like, I really didn't mean that. I mean, sometimes you do. I should say you did. I'm saying there are responses that flare up and come out, and once you've had a chance to think about what happened, you'll realize that's not how I wanted to represent myself. Let me say it that way. But I know some people may say, well, that was your real reaction though. So I don't know. It can kind of go both ways, but I'm a firm believer in really thinking about something, and okay, if I say this, is that really representative of who I am and how I want to come across?
I can say honestly, I don't have a personal definition. Like I looked it up to make sure I knew what we were talking about. So I know it means like ability to recognize and understand and manage my own emotions. But I'm gonna tell y'all honestly, I ain't been good at that up until like yesterday. So
Not yesterday.
because as a young person, like I and I didn't realize till I got older, but I carried around a lot of anger, and that anger would come out in situations. And so I would not be able to monitor or manage my emotions so that my work so that I could be calmer in situations, or and I'm talking about like, I'm not talking about like, 10, I'm talking about 22. You know what I'm saying? It took a really long time for me to go, okay, what is this response that I'm having? Because if you have an emotional response to something, a lot of times it is physical. Like you can have it can bubble up in your stomach. It can sit on your chest. It can, there can be fire coming out of your ear. And if I was in a situation with John and he said something that I realized later reminded me of something that happened 10 years ago, that's where my response came from. Right? Like I would not be able to regulate that. So it took me a really long time to understand that I needed to stop and think about what I was going to say before I said it. Because again, for those of you y'all have tuned in before, I pick like 80% of the fights. Like I pick 80% of the battles. When they say pick your battles, like I'm picking up a lot of spears and boxing gloves. And so I had to start to realize that the words that I was using might not necessarily get across what I needed, especially in a work setting. I can tell you there's been times I done cussed out people at work and they done sent me home. So like so I am on the spectrum of like really just consistently learning myself and learning how to manage some emotions that I have that I didn't realize I was carrying around. So once I started realizing, oh, I'm carrying around this from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, from an argument I had with my ex-husband, and some bald guy reminds me of my ex-husband. Now I'm mad at him. Not you, CJ, you don't look like him. But
Wait a minute. Good night, yo.
I was reading the room. I'm like,
That was
wait
the
a
whole
minute.
podcast away.
but really just kind of honing in on unhealed situations and realizing that I was letting those emotions from an unhealed situation with another person come out in something that's current and happening now. So it's I'm not as healed as the rest of y'all seem to be.
Nice.
I haven't been thinking twice and talking once. I've been talking and then thinking later on, ooh, child, you might not have said that. Not should have said that the way you said it. But that's what I'm learning in as I get older and having gone through there's a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna let somebody else talk and then I'll let y'all know.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna spin this, right. So I heard a lot of it, right. And what if I was to sum it up, I heard a lot of how emotional intelligence kind of looks like a defense mechanism, right? Where it's like, that's what I kind of got from just about everyone. Johans, you
Oh,
want-
no. I was just over here I was just over here processing what you were saying.
Okay.
Just thinking about emotional intelligence. But I'm gonna let you finish your thought though, because I'm gonna let you finish your thought.
Yeah, because I want to make sure I get to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if we're talking about how it could be a defense mechanism,
Right.
how can it be used as an offensive mechanism?
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Tell me more of that. As a matter of fact, give me a situation within, right?
Now, I like that part, because what's interesting is that my definition of emotional intelligence is not just individualistic, right? It actually encompasses you being aware of your emotions, but also, as we say, read the room. You got to be aware of the people around you. You know what I'm saying? Even if, like, we could talk about, Marcia at work. Like, you got to know how you're feeling, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like even in those situations, somebody may have triggered you, that bald-headed man that reminded you of your ex, you know what I'm saying? And then, but you make a great point, because certain things that are not healed, you get triggered by them, which creates or drives the emotional response. You know what I'm saying? But as far as I would say a positive, I would just say, even if we take that same example of being in a workplace, right? Let's just say, being aware, because I feel like, part of emotional intelligence starts with the awareness, you know what I'm saying? So you're aware first, right? So it's like, I feel like that's the first part of it. And then let's just say somebody is spewing some hate, somebody's spewing some whatever. You either have the authority to stay in that fight. Like you said, you pick most of them, but if somebody comes to you, you have the ability to say, you know what? I know that I'm, this is bubbling up. This heat, this anger is bubbling up in me. I see that this person has no idea what he's talking about or she's talking about. Let me either remove myself or let me engage in battle. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, the awareness part, and I'm trying to think of a personal one. And when it comes back around the horn, I may have, thought about something personal, but I feel like, part of the emotional intelligence is understanding what's going on across from you. Internally, yes, but whoever is in front of you, it could be your children, it could be your spouse, it could be Joe Blow that you pass on the street and y'all just have an interaction. Like everybody that you come across, it's like your emotional intelligence has to be up there so that you can feel and know what's going on so that you can properly respond. Because it doesn't have to be a negative response all the time. That's like emotional intelligence. Like somebody's like flirting with you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it's like that right there, you got to pick up on it. Like, hey, oh my God, she she called me handsome. Okay, with her eyes, she's undressed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to be able to, pick up on all of that type of stuff. So just being hyper aware, and sometimes that's the challenge because we, like you said, we feel more defensive, and that's something like that's real comfortable. You want to defend, but sometimes you gotta see where you're at, but also get a gauge of where they're at and how you need to respond because of somebody else.
Right. Kelly, you look like you got something on your mind, girl.
I'm just thinking, I'm just listening. I guess I want to go back to what Kyra was saying, how she's like said like how do you say what you mean, but then like when you're thinking twice, it's like how do you like get that out without feeling like you're saying what the other person wants to hear.
Mm.
And so I'm just like, what, like, how do you find that like middle ground? Because like I feel like I have found myself kind of like taking back some of the things that I want to get out, or I want to portray to the person, just because like, oh, I feel like if I said that, it's gonna hurt their feelings, and not being able to like maybe like reword it or say, to where I'm actually getting my point out.
Mm-hmm. I think because I have been so emotional in responses, I'm learning to take more of a moment, because sometimes I would be very fast in what I was going to say, or in responding via email, right? And so now the editor in me is also helping me emotionally respond by saying, you know what, I'm going to type this out and then I'm going to wait till tomorrow before I respond.
Right.
Like, again, if we're talking about a work setting, like I'm going to say what I think I should say. And even in that, like being a professional response and then going, okay, the next day, after 24 hours, after I've had an opportunity to think about the situation and then go, oh, okay, well, I can take this sentence out because it doesn't mean it's not necessary, right? From that standpoint. But also, to your point, reading the room is, let's say, because I want to use real scenarios to help our listeners. Like, let's say we're in a situation where there's a microaggression, where someone, we know microaggressions where someone is like passive aggressive, saying something to, to a woman or a person of color, like, oh, your hair is so nice now that it's straight when it's been in braids for weeks. That's kind of a microaggression. So like, how would I respond to that? Would I just say thank you? Is this person a person that is consistently bringing those kinds of microaggressions to us? So then how do we address that? Because from an emotional intelligence standpoint, I know how I feel when that's said to me. Does that person realize that it's a microaggression? Does that person realize that they are being negative when they're doing this? So I have to think about how to respond. And that's how I feel when it hits me, but also how do I say it in a light where that it helps the person understand possibly, or at least tells them to stop saying that possibly. Like, we've also got to understand, like, the people that we're around, that we're working in conjunction with on a regular basis, and how that may present itself going forward. So those, like, how do I'm not necessarily concerned about hurting someone's feelings in a workspace. You may be thinking about like a family member or a friend, but how can I make sure that this workspace is not suddenly becoming a hostile work environment? How can I address it personally before it has to go and escalate to something else? So
Get it early. Go first.
right.
So what I mean by go first is, and I'll speak specifically to the workplace, because, you know, I'll speak to that unless somebody else go further with like a family member or something. Like, in certain instances, you gotta, for lack of a better phrase, you gotta check people. You know what I'm saying? And how you check people, you gotta understand your setting. So nobody's going to be out here, you know, cursing folks out to some degree, but you gotta let people know how that affected you. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the times people will say things because they're used to their environment. They're used to just saying things, and they might not have had anybody else, you know, check them. You know what I'm saying? Case in point, I had I had just started working at this location, and I guess this lady, you know, a white lady and her husband, they just came back from Jamaica. And so, you know, she's like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? So I'm being introduced around the office, and she's like, oh my gosh, I just came back from Jamaica. And she's like, can I touch your hair? And I'm like, no. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, well, no, you know, I don't let people touch my hair. So she was like, oh, it's because I'm white. I was like, no, it's because I don't let people touch my hair. You could be black, brown, whatever. So it was like, that boundary was set right then and there. Like, no, I'm not okay with that. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't rude. It was just like, no, I'm not letting you touch my hair because, you know, you think that I'm a doll, and what you saw in Jamaica when you went, you think it's okay to just walk up to the first person that you see that's here or there. So I was like, no, you know, so to me, it was, and ironically, like the next couple of years, every time she saw me, you'll never let me touch your hair. So it was just weird, you know what I'm saying? But it's just how I am. But it's a boundary. So you have to let people know where they went wrong or where they are going wrong. And I say do early, because if you wait and let it fester and let it keep multiplying, you see, I didn't say adding, but multiplying, because they're going to keep doing it if nobody says anything. So the emotional intelligence part is, again, being aware of how you would react, but also understanding the setting that you're in, and just saying, you know what, you can either pull somebody to the side, or sometimes when the disrespect is public, sometimes you might have to check, you know, you might have to check them publicly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Depending upon who you're dealing with. You know, I hope that helped.
Yeah, that definitely did.
I was
Go
saving
ahead,
this for a
CJ.
little. I was saving this for a little bit later, but I'm about to blow all of y'all minds, because I want you to remember every single thing that each and every one of you have talked about. All right, raise your hands if you know what the law of attraction is.
Oh, you're trying. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like you try to bring it into your life?
Bring the negativity into my life.
The law of attraction. Do you try to utilize the law of attraction in your life?
I've tried,
Like-
yes.
Okay.
I have not.
All right.
No.
So
But-
so you do affirmations and stuff like that, probably. All right, that's a part of the law of attraction. So
Okay.
the answer is yes. I'm not being the bald-headed guy, I promise you. Stick with me real quick. So check this. Emotions are horrible leaders. They're horrible leaders, but they are wonderful servants when we use them the right way. And what I mean by that is what are you being emotionally aware of, right? So if you have this IQ, what are you being aware of within yourself? And then how long are you allowing it to fester? Because affirmations, they do work up until a certain point. They work when you start to move that wonderful servant behind them called emotions. So when you find yourself aware of a particular emotion and you stay in that realm, that is exactly what you're attracting back into your life. right? So emotional intelligence is actually a great counterpart to the law of attraction, because that which you are aware of and continue to fester on and somehow, some way keeps coming into your life, you have to take ownership and say that you're attracting that.
A willing participant.
Yep.
Right? Right? And so here's the thing. And so I asked you all that question very, very strategically. And now let me give you a situation. So I was in a work setting years and years ago where there was a lady that was, I had just gotten onto this team, huge financial institution. And we were basically doing things around, we were handling billions and billions of dollars, right? And we're needing to tell these people how they're performing, right? People's bonuses are judged based on the level of bonus that they get is based on the performance that they do. The performance that they do is basically tracking. What have you done, right? And these are the things that we would do. And so there was very little confidence in the tracking mechanisms that were in place when I first came on board to this company, right? To the point where they're like, look, you told me it was 10, but we know it's 100. We don't believe you, right? This and this, right? They just couldn't stand the team. So I did exactly what I think Marcia did, right? I just sat back and I listened. And I saw, all right, well, who are the key players in this room? Who are the ones that are, if this is the common thought within this room, how do we change it? I can't change it by all of them. For one, I'm damn sure not going to accept it, right? I'm not going to accept it. But how do we change it? Because there's us and then there's them. Well, the only way to really change them is to get one of them to change them. Well, that's to find out who's the influencer, right? And so it's really about, I'm becoming emotionally aware. Yeah. I mean, to the point where this lady's cussing us out. She is doing this, she's doing this, right? And it's like, man, okay. And I'm seeing everyone's reactions. But that's the thing. They were always reacting to this one person. And so I took a step back and said, look, all right, let's change up the strategy. Let's change up the entire strategy. If we want to please the 15 of them, all we got to do is get to the one. If we can get to the one,
that's right.
We want to be the one to influence all of them. Why? Because all of them are just playing off of her. That's it. A lot of people don't want to talk. 36% of the people worldwide are emotionally intelligent. That means that 2/3 of people worldwide lack emotional intelligence. It means that they are not aware of themselves emotionally, nor are they aware of the emotions of those that are around us. So where I'm getting at is emotional intelligence is actually a superpower. It is a superpower. If you accept it, if you can get out of just mainly looking at yourself and start to pay attention to how are these people feeling. And when you can tune in to how they're feeling, we talked about this a lot before, being an empath to a certain degree, right? But acknowledging it and then seeing what you can do about it. How can I raise everyone's vibrations in this room right now? How can I do it? I would think and I would hope that I'm doing it to y'all right now, right? And that's exactly what we did to this lady that decided that she wanted to cuss us out and blah, 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 and this and that and all that kind of stuff. Within a year's time, she was coming to my desk giving me hugs. I had never been hugged in corporate America before. And here she was, you changed everything. And it literally changed the dynamics of everything. That meant more money for our team. That meant more bonuses for them. That meant more and more. So what I'm saying is how has emotional intelligence been an offensive in your life? It may look like a negative, but how do you use it as a superpower? I pose that question back to you.
Now I gotta look at it from a superpower.
Because it is a superpower.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that 100% because when we talked about a few weeks ago about changing the energy in the room, that's part of really what you just said about emotional intelligence? How can I positively affect the people in the space that may be negatively affecting the other people, which is what that scenario that you had. So I'm still learning, certainly, because there are spaces in which you have to understand what you're dealing with and why. Like, why am I feeling angry at this particular moment?
Or why am
And
I feeling happy at this particular moment
at
as
this
well?
particular moment, like, what is bringing me up? What is making me happy? How can I help the other people in the room who may not be at the level that I am? So that's an awesome way to look at it. I like it.
Yeah,
Is it an
and
awesome
sometimes,
way to look at it, or is it the only way to look at it?
well, when you said it like that, it seems it's the only way to look at it because
Um,
emotion, like honestly, like now that I'm thinking about it, like you said at the beginning, like we did kind of come at it as like using it as a defense mechanism, but like changing it to using it as a superpower, like it can help with like your social interactions. It helps like, with your networking. It'll help you get to the place that you want to be, whether that's, building your business or, like you said, influencing the right people. So definitely, definitely, we have to look at it as a superpower.
Right?
so, CJ, in looking at it as a superpower, if I don't have really good emotional intelligence right now, how do I get to the place where I have better emotional intelligence? What would be a suggestion?
What I would
Mm.
suggest is to for one, I'm gonna go back to, I think last week I was talking about decide. You have to decide what what you're going to step into. You have to decide, regardless if it looks like that or not, right? Physically, right? Everything, physical matter is changed by the spiritual essence of everything, right? So if you can decide on that mentally, and that takes time, right? But
Mhm.
make that decision that this is what I demand in life, regardless of what it looks like. Damn it, one day it's going to show up, and I'm going to keep showing up that way until, right? And that until is just infinite, right? And so from there, now it's just listening, right? I'll look at this as anything. Like if I'm a cousin of mine brought over my kind of first cousin. We were kind of the same age, but she brought over a younger cousin, and she's a Girl Scout. She's in the second grade. And she wanted to go sell Girl Scout cookies in my neighborhood. And that was the thing. So she was very keen on just wanting to go everywhere. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, let's check and see. Let's check and see how people are acting outside, right? Are they busy doing something? Are they in conversation? Does the conversation look like it's passionate? This may not yet, not yet. Her name's Emma. I'm like, not yet, Emma, not them. Let's come back to them. Okay. Let's wave at them. Let's say, hey, let them see us, let them see your Girl Scout bag, and then let's walk away. And then we're gonna go over to the next door neighbor, and then let's go get them. Right. Right. And so it's just like, look, you can call this what you want, right? Like, is it manipulation? I don't know. If you can manipulate, if someone can manipulate me into having a great day, would I allow it? I might. I just might, right? um, so and then when we went back to them, right? Those people said, thank you so much, because it was a really important conversation, blah, blah, blah. Look, I want to buy more cookies. They bought like 3 boxes from us just from that, right? It was because of, let's be aware, that child, like, look, it's grown people over there talking. It's gonna be over there talking. Be emotionally aware, right? That now ain't the right time. And because it's not, because of that, you may be rewarded for that later on,
Mhm.
right? Because you decided to do the right thing for that individual at that point in time. Um, I can give you another, real quick. This is a long drawn out one, but real quick, a situation where I was becoming a developer, and I I was able to get this job as a developer without even knowing how to code. I didn't know how to read it and I didn't know how to write it. But the manager that interviewed me, he was very, very religious, right? He was a very religious person. And I knew that just off of the way that he kind of responded to certain things and to things that he would do in an interview. And so now I'm understanding where he's coming from. And so I started talking the same words that he would talk. I started using the same language that he would use, right? And it's, call it what you will. People love themselves more than anything, even when they say they don't. So when you treat them the way that they want to be treated, that's how you make a girl fall in love. That's how you make a man fall in love. That's how things blossom and happen. Kyra, you said it. You said something like that. You don't necessarily need to say what other people want them to say, but I would say you probably want to deliver it the way that they'll actually receive it.
Exactly.
Right? Be aware of how it will be received, because people will tell you. They'll tell you how to talk to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna shut up there. Those are a couple things, but I can keep going on this one.
Nah, I definitely agree with you with that. And that's why people be like, what's your love language? What's your love language? And a lot of the times, even your communication style, and a lot of the times people like to communicate to you how they communicate. And it's like, no, learn how I communicate so that you can better communicate with me. You know what I'm saying? And Marcia, to your point, just real quick, as far as, how does one gain a certain level of emotional intelligence? To me, it begins with the awareness, right? The awareness, like figuring out what's going on inside of me at this particular moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what's going on, what's happening with me, whether you're happy, sad, whatever, what's happening with me? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, like we talked about the defensive, that right there, if it goes awry, we got to learn to self-regulate. You know what I'm saying? So it's like being able to have that filter to know how to, like I said, you kind of got to know where you're at. You know what I'm saying? And what you should, to some degree, and what you should not do, because to some degree, if it's your livelihood at stake, you might want to be easy, still check somebody, but you just got to be mindful of how you do it. You know what I'm saying? And to some degree, right, what I feel like CJ is talking about is having a little bit of, well, maybe not, but have a little bit of empathy. You know what I'm saying? For that person, be able to feel, you know what I'm saying? Be an empath, feel what's going on with them. Cause a lot of the times it's not you. When people are they doing whatever, it's a lot of it is just them. You know what I'm saying? Right. They might have some stuff going on. And lastly, I would just say, just figure out what's your motivation, whether it be an internal motivation or something, external to you. You know what I'm saying? And I would just say, start with that. Because I feel like that right there will help you on the journey of becoming more and more intelligent. But and I guess the last thing I would say is, I would say to tell everybody, just take stock of how you respond. Learn yourself better. You know what I'm saying? Figure out what makes you tick. Figure out why, when it's sunny outside, you extra chipper, you know what I'm saying? You feeling good, feeling great. I recently learned about SAD. Basically, you basically
Right.
where the temperature to some degree, or depending on where you at, it causes
seasonal affective depression. For those
Correct.
people who don't know, I think it's seasonal affective depression.
Correct. So I was just like, wow, like I knew that a lot of the times you might hear you got the winter blues, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the times it's cold outside and there's no sun, so there's no level of movement, you know what I'm saying? And so just for me, it's just learn yourself better. You know what I'm saying? Ask yourself those questions of, like, even if you got to ask yourself, when you get up in the morning, how am I feeling this morning? Because chances are, to some degree, you might not have nobody asking you that anyway. So, but you got to ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? What day am I looking to create for today? You start with self, and I feel like, and I'm really like, CJ, you really got me thinking about this whole, Monty Tech Mind, as far as, just this law of attraction. You know what I'm saying? So now you got that in my head right now. Like, can you attract the great day? You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and ponder on that one.
Let me elaborate because you said something just now. You said, the conscious thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Right. And so the reason why I say the first thing that you should do is decide now and decide often, right? Because
Mm,
it isn't, I'm not going to sit up here and say, hey, this is the way things are. And then that's just it. You're going to have to make that same decision every day, right? Or
mhm.
multiple times a day or multiple times an hour, but that's the decision. But here's the thing with that, because that's the conscious piece of it. But you ever been in a situation where you was driving home from somewhere and something was on your mind and all of a sudden you was home?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you unconsciously got yourself there. But what
Facts.
happened when you first learned how to drive was you had to be so aware and so decision driven on, I'm going to look at this mirror, I'm going to put it at 10 and 2 or just at 12, you know what I mean? Or lean, you know what I mean? You had to decide these things when you first learned how to drive, but because you made that decision so many times consciously that it became unconscious.
That's good. That's real
That's
good.
what I'm saying here. So that's what I'm saying. Decide and get past the willpower of just our conscious decisions, because that just make it more and more and more. It's about repetition, not necessarily the quality of just one decision, right? So just a repetition of it. That's where I'm kind of going with it. So I just had to expand on that. You talk about conscious and what beat it to the point that is unconscious,
Mhm.
and that is the law of attraction,
Mhm.
right? Because now you'll just start to do these things. You're like, man, dang, I decided to do that and it just happened. Was because you made the decision so many times over and over that you don't even need to think about it anymore, right? It becomes a what muscle memory, right?
Mhm.
You know what, like the back of your hand.
So I would, for those who are not quite as enlightened as our co-host CJ, who can just make a decision, which is awesome for those people who can. I would like to kind of go backwards a little bit, just because I know I've struggled, it sounds like the most with emotional intelligence. And I would say find out what's causing, if if you don't want what just happened to happen to again in a situation, find out what's causing you to respond in that way. So does that mean you have to go to counseling? Does that mean that you have to read some self-help books? Does that mean that you have to do some what's it called, shadow work, if people are familiar with that? Like
Mhm.
I did a lot of shadow work recently, like I'm talking about in the last 18 months, to help me understand why I was feeling certain ways when my ex-husband came to town, you know. But there's a lot of different there's a lot of different ways to start in different places, right? Because if you um I'm trying to think of a less volatile situation, but if you find, going back to a work situation, and Kelly, I would like to have you kind of jump in about a family situation, because I think those are important to talk as well. I don't, but if you're in a situation and you find that energy, like, why am I feeling stressed? Why am I feeling this? And I don't want to feel this. Like, you may have to not just decide not to feel like that, but figure out why you're feeling like that so that you can purge it. Sometimes those things need to be purged, and you need to figure out why they're coming up or where they came from so that you can purge it.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? So you
Yeah,
said
yeah, absolutely.
understanding why it happened, right? How does understanding why it happened help you to purge it, and what do you mean by purging it?
Okay. So I felt like there was a situation when I
And tell me
was a
when
young.
it worked.
And yeah, okay. So there was a situation when I was younger where I felt like I wasn't protected by the adults in my family. So because I wasn't protected by the adults in my family, I had to protect myself, which means that I carried that for years. I'm the person who has to protect Marcia. So in every situation, I have to protect Marcia in the manner in which I had hoped or wished that the adults had protected me. So if you come at Marcia wrong, then the way I had hoped my mom or my dad or my grandmother or whatever had protected me is the way I would protect myself. And that is a generational fight because I just named a bunch of generations, right? So now, if I'm just in a conversation with you, but I had hoped my grandmother or my mother or someone else, now you got a whole bunch of generations that's bubbling up in Marcia taking care of this one smaller situation. The situation is not as big as what the other things were. So why do I feel like that? Oh, I didn't know that at the time, that it was because I didn't feel protected. And in doing, there's lots of different ways to do shadow work. I'm a writer, so I would write, why do you feel like this? And then I realized it's because I didn't feel protected. So in doing that, how do I protect myself, but not make it World War III? Right? Because that's what I was doing. I was making it like, if you see the Tasmanian devil in the cartoon, right? He's just, and that's how kind of I was feeling inside. So once I got to the point where I was like, oh, this is how I'm feeling, and this is why I'm feeling that way. So when I respond, I can respond in a calmer way and use different words, because this person is not the person that may have hurt me 15 years ago or didn't protect me 10 years ago. This person is right here in this moment, in this time. And how do I respond to this situation right here in this moment, in this time, without carrying all the baggage that I may have had? Does that help?
I guess on the purging side of it, I mean, it's gone. The
Right.
feeling is
But you
gone.
have to do something to figure it out. What'd you say, Kelly?
I don't think that the feeling would necessarily be gone. I think that uh, honestly, I think that just like you're rewriting that experience for
That's
yourself.
good.
You're
Yeah.
rewriting the narrative and you're telling yourself a story a different way. So you do know how to come at it, you know, like in the new later, like when you're dealing with it right now. It's like, okay, like I was, here and I wasn't feeling protected and this is how I felt. And it's okay that I felt like that. But now like I recognize it, like I do have to realize what I experienced was exactly what it was. But now it's like what I'm experiencing now is not that. It may be a trigger for me, but it's like I understand my triggers and I know how to react moving forward. So I definitely don't think that you have to purge it. I think it's more of like how are you processing the story in today, and how are you reacting from there. But I feel like if you purge it, then you'll always go back to acting that same way because you never dealt with it.
Mm, right. I think just for me, it's helpful to know where it came from, and
Oh,
to
absolutely.
have, to understand, why am I feeling like this? Like, and do I want to keep being the person that, loses her crap every time?
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to be that person. I don't want to, I want to be able to, I teach self-defense. So I want to be able to teach people in which situations that they need to respond certain ways, but I don't want to be the person that's carrying around this anger forever and throwing up anger on people that don't need all of the anger. Maybe they need 5% of
Right.
it as opposed to 105% of it. So
Right.
That was
And I guess for me, like I, I'm coming at it from a different angle because like the things that I dealt with, the situations where I haven't been protected, it didn't like make me an angry person. Like I feel like I'm such a chill person to the point where it's not even okay. But like it made me quiet, right? It made me like go internal, and it made me just like not be able to speak up for myself. And like through like high school, through like my early years of college, like I was going through stuff and I was experiencing things or in situations where I felt like I like where I was feeling the same thing, where I was experiencing those same triggers, and I would just like stay to myself. And I felt like I was allowing people to just treat me like that. And I was, because I didn't have the words, I didn't have the knowledge or anything to just like know how to speak up for myself to even realize that this is why I'm acting like that. I'm just like thinking I'm just like the chill, quiet person in the corner of the room. Like I like to hang out, but like whatever. And so like it didn't make me angry, but now I'm to a point where I feel like I have talked through it enough. I mean, I do go and I get information from my therapist, and I'm trying to rewrite these stories for myself. But now it's getting to a point where like I want to use my voice to help people who have also gone into that shell. And so I guess that's why it's different for me, because I like I'm not an angry person. I don't want to fight you. I'll leave before that stuff happens. I don't want to argue with you. I don't even like yelling. So you gotta go somewhere else with that. If you mad, you're gonna be mad here by yourself.
I got you.
Yeah, Kelly, I agree. I'm a very laid back type of person, and sometimes it's very good, and other times it gives me an interesting reaction from others because they, some people are. I mean, if they're being very emotional in a situation, and they expect, especially if someone's picking a fight, and I won't give them one. So sometimes the other person can get angrier because of my lack of response. I'll respond, but they could be yelling or cussing, and I'm gonna be like, okay, all right, my tone is right there. So then they're getting even more agitated with me. But I mean,
That
that's
right
just
there is a superpower. That's the superpower. Because if
In and
you
of
hollering
itself.
at me, it's gonna take a lot. But that's also like making sure that if you're reading the emotions of the other person or the emotions that's in the other room, like if someone, a lot of times people will react a certain way because family, spouses, they push our buttons, right? So they are doing certain things because they know they're going to get something very specific out of us, because that's what we've done in the past. So in a situation where you're starting to grow and recognize your own emotional intelligence, and you stop giving them what they want, ooh, then there's more fire coming out of their head, because I'm expecting, you're yelling at Marcia, and Marcia is going to go toe to toe. But Marcia is like, you know what? I'm getting better at this. I'm not going to go toe to toe with you. And now you are on fire because what?
Yeah,
People,
and so that's where you have to learn. You still need an appropriate response, even if you're not going to give them a fight. You need to be able to get your point across another way. And
Right.
and as I've gotten older, now I've gotten better at that, because I used to, like I said, I internalize a lot of things, so I may not say what needs to be said in the moment in the past. But as I've matured, then I have gotten better at being able to speak my mind without necessarily going where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I can still, okay, we're two adults. This is a situation. I need you to understand A, B, and C, and I'm done. That's it. So you can say whatever response you want, and I will listen to the best of my ability. It just depends on, if you're yelling, I'm going to let you know it's the best way I can. Okay, we can talk when you're ready to talk to me respectfully.
Right.
And
Very
I
good.
got a question for y'all. I mean, I just once I go through these things, I'm done. I'm done with you because I'm on a mission in life. How how are you in these situations and continue because okay, because it seems like a constant fight, right? Like you have you're fighting this thing, but the thing is a fight for no advancement. It's only a fight for just where you are,
That moment.
right? Like it's just it's not a fight to get better. It's a fight to just survive in this moment. Like I don't get why to continue to be in those situations.
I feel like it may
I,
depend, just real quick. I feel like it may depend on the level of relationship of who it is you're dealing with at that time. Because if it's some Joe
Why
below
keep the
the street,
relationship? Why keep it?
well,
Mm.
oh, see, the thing is this: if you have some deep rooted feelings, emotions, et cetera, like it's like that's not as easy to just throw away. You know what I'm saying? If I just meet somebody off the street, you know what I'm saying, boom, boom, boom. But somebody that I'm in love. You know what I'm saying? It's like those relationships, even if it's family, it's just like some personal relationships are just that deep. Whereas sometimes throwing it away might be the good thing, but how do you go about doing that? Because it's such the deep emotional, tie that you have. And I guess it becomes an obligation. You feel obligated to keep it going, just that and the third. But it's just hard to throw away something that means so much to you in that particular moment. I didn't
But
mean to cut you off, Kelly's my fault.
if it means that much to you, how can you say that you love yourself?
Ooh, hold on now. Wait a minute.
So
Yeah.
you
Go ahead, Kelly.
about
No,
to
I'm
say,
listening. Go ahead. Go ahead.
nah, I mean you love yourself because see, to some degree, you feel that you are worthy of something. If it's a person, granted, that might not be treating you well, but you feel like you're worthy of love, but you want it from that person. I feel like some people might stay in a situation because you want it from that person. You know what I'm saying? It's like your worth. They treat you bad, but you want it from that person. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah. That that was a sensitive subject for me. But I want to say that to be realistic, like a lot of people are in that constant fight because like not a lot of people are like have the mindset that we're talking about right now, right? Like not a lot of people have a growth mindset or I've been
Mhm.
through this and I'm going to just drop it off and just leave it there. Like a lot of people are literally like just in survival mode trying to trying to fight to be there in that exact spot that they're in. So it's like, okay, yeah, I've been through these things, but it's like, okay, maybe like how is this helping me? How can like what can I learn from this? Honestly, like how can I even get to tomorrow like dealing with this stuff? Like a lot of I don't know, people are in survival mode trying to go through these things and people will make the same decision. History is going to repeat itself until you realize you step out of that. A lot of people don't know how to step out of that and make a different decision. They don't even know that they're making the wrong decision in the first place.
You
And
might be thinking the
So,
wrong decision over and over again because you, in your mind, you might feel like it's gonna get right. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
If that
mm.
makes any sense. To
but
some
then
degree.
that's
How
you putting. Go
Okay,
ahead, go
so wait a
ahead,
minute.
how is that
See,
CJ.
emotional intelligence?
but it's
How is
not.
It's
that
not
being
the.
emotionally intelligent?
Maybe
It's
we get
not.
dumb at
And to
times.
your point, at the very
It's the
onset of the
path.
conversation, 2/3 of us are
Don't.
not emotionally
Emotionally.
intelligent. So think about this. So, firstly, you said, how can you love yourself? And people will think that they love themselves, but their actions may not. Number one. Number two, like, if I am not emotionally intelligent enough to know that I am looking for a father figure because I didn't have one in my life, and I'm keep putting myself in these relationships that I think is love, but it's really because I'm looking for a daddy and I don't know that this is what I'm doing, then I'm going to keep having this same conversation, right? This same kind of person. And remember, I work with domestic violence survivors and victims. And so there are some things that you see over and over again. But if I am looking for a specific situation and I don't know that I'm looking for a specific situation, I keep having this conversation with this person, saying, if you love me, then you'll do X. If you love me, then you'll do X. If you love me, then you'll do X. Because I don't understand that what I'm looking for, this person can't give me. right? So when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we still have to go back to the part of introspection. What am I doing? Do I want to keep doing this? And am I in the right space to thrive? Right. So that's why I love this conversation, so that we can have all of these different ideas and ideals, so that our listeners can be like, oh, maybe I should be thinking about this instead of that. Maybe I should be doing this instead of that.
I would even venture to my fault, Carl. Let me just get this real quick. I would also venture to say that sometimes we're not as emotional intelligent as we think we are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
and
saying?
you-
And I feel, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, no,
No,
I mean, I
you
feel like,
finish.
no, I just feel like at times, like, not to say that it's okay, but it's like always striving for perfection. Like, to be perfect is to be emotionally intelligent in every situation. I'm not gonna sit here in front that I'm emotionally intelligent in every situation, because I'm not. You know what I'm saying? I'm striving to be, but yo, at times, yeah, I might go left. I had a situation at work the other day I was telling y'all about. I was ready to go left, but I had, a certain level of awareness, and it's just like, that's why, like CJ, to your point, it's the constant decision, right? So it's not something that happens one time and you automatically have emotional intelligence. It is something that has to be worked at. But I also recognize that at times I may not have it as much as I might want it at that particular moment. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like that's just, to some degree, the just the human side. That's just being real. Like, I don't have it all the time. I strive to have it all the time, but yo, at times I could go left too. You know what I'm saying?
And
I heard
CJ, if I
the,
can,
go ahead, Kyra. Go, no,
if
go,
I
go.
can just go all the way back to respond to what you said a while ago about just cut the person off. And sometimes that can be an appropriate response. And then there are other times when, in particular, if it's a family member, when they may not always be, you can limit your interaction with the family member, but is cutting them off the answer? Not necessarily, in particular when it's family. And I'm just saying that because I've been in a few situations, and yes, I've had to distance myself from them, but to literally cut them off, as in, don't call me, don't talk to me, I won't call you. That's not necessarily, at least that's not the way I would choose to go. I would try to figure out, I'd be praying for them and praying for myself to know how to, what is it that I can do to help change the way we interact? And if it means that this other person, I'm going to check myself and see, am I doing something that's bringing this on? I'm going to start with that first. And if I'm not seeing anything on myself, and it's this person, or perhaps they have that issue with a lot of other family members, I don't know. But I can try to communicate with that person and find out where the problem is. But I'm not going to say I'm necessarily going to just simply cut them off.
I want to say it's levels to that. It's levels to the, like, cutting the family and stuff off, because, like, yeah, you're my family, yeah, we're blood and all that stuff, but, like, I have no obligation to be here and to, like, allow you to treat me like that, right? The same way you don't have the permission to treat me like that just because that's how you are. Like, sometimes you can realize it, and it's like, okay, depending on what situation it's like, can it be worked out? Like, is it actually me? Like, yes, I can do the introspection, but, like, is it actually me? Or are you just like that? And do I have to continue to deal with that if it's making me feel this way? I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to recognize more that, like, I'm in a lot of situations, or I'm around a lot of people who don't make me always feel the way that I think that I am gonna feel for that day, or, like, I feel like I'm giving a lot of my control away to people. So it's like, okay, well, here, take my control back, and it's like, I that's when you kind of decide, like, okay, am I cutting you off completely? Am I talking to you at the Christmas party? Am I like, are we gonna go hang out on the weekends and go do this, that, and the third? So it's definitely levels to it, but I definitely think it's like, okay, yeah, it's like there's there's your self-love. Like, what do I think about myself? How am I don't know, just how am I gonna allow people to treat me? and then just kind of making your decision from there. But it is a little bit harder to have a family member that you're like, okay, like, you may be a negative influence on my life, you may be negatively influencing me in this moment, or you're choosing to stay where you are, but like, hey, I'm elevating. So it's like now I have to make choices that align with the person that I am elevating to be. So like that's kind of where a lot of my choices are now. It's like I have a goal and I'm genuinely working towards those goals. So it's like if you are gonna want to keep me here, then yeah, maybe I won't even be at the Christmas party. Maybe I won't even be at, whatever. So you just have to, again, like it's back to the decision. Like what decision are you making in that moment? It's like what role are you allowing them to play in your life?
That's real.
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, it again, Kelly, just to reiterate what you said is it's a choice. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I came into this world alone and I'm going to die alone. Right? And the legacy that I leave, that's the legacy that I leave, right? And will I hinder the legacy that I desire to leave just because I can't separate myself from these people because I've known them forever, because we have the same blood. I mean, look, if we on the same path, we don't even need to be on the same path, but if you're in the way of my path, if you're trying to pull me down and pull me away and deter me, look, you got to go. That's just it. For And I say that because I will say that I have a level of determination for something, right? A mission that I must accomplish in my life. And I know, hey, everybody don't want to accomplish that same mission. Okay, cool. Go sit your behind on the bench so I can go do my thing. That's just that. I mean, whatever that looks like, right? And again, I stopped drinking years ago, right? And it was literally, I just cut it off. Like, but here's the thing. I told my wife, I was like, look, I mean, I love you, but I cannot go to the bar and get you a drink. Yeah, that's what the man's supposed to do. I cannot swipe my card and buy you a drink. I cannot go to the liquor store with you to go and buy a drink. I cannot go out with my friends that are going to go and do these things and drink. Why? Because I wasn't in a state where I could not necessarily control myself, but I mean, I've never outright admitted that I was like an alcoholic or something like that. I stopped because I wanted to run a marathon. And I was like, in order for me to run this marathon with a 2-year-old kid, the only time to train was between 2 and 6 a.m. Right? That was the only time. And it wasn't no way I was going to drink and then be up in order to train. So I had to just get it to a point where it's like, you know what? I don't want to smell it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be around anyone with it. And that made it easy for me because now I don't even have to make a choice. Right? I don't have to sit there across from this bottle and say, "Ooh, do I touch it? You know what I mean? Do I have to make this conscious decision because it's in my presence?" And I mean that, I mean that the same as an individual sitting across the dinner table from me. Do I engage in this conversation with you? Because that's not where I want my mind to be going. Right? That's the only thing that they know to talk about. That's the only place that they are, that's where they are in life. That's okay. But I have chosen not to be there. I have chosen not to be at that place in my headspace in life. And unfortunately, those are the conversations that they want to have. And by me being in their presence, I can't force them to have conversations that I want to have. So I'm actually doing them a favor and myself a favor by leaving the room.
That I understand. That I understand where you have to cut that off because it literally can be detrimental to your development. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to say it, but I feel like it's like a case by case basis. Or if you keep that same mentality, you treat literally everything like that, it's just like, okay, you're getting in the way of destiny. I gotta cut it off. You know what I'm saying? And that's a certain way to look at things. You know what I'm saying? Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. It's just saying that you see your greater purpose. And if somebody's getting in the way of that, you know, they're in the way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to bump them off. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, you know, I always look at challenges as, what is this person teaching me that I need for my next phase or my next, you know what I'm saying, level in life? You know, even with situations at work, dealing with a, you know, horrible supervisor, whatever, what is that preparing me for? I
That's
unfortunately couldn't
good.
necessarily cut that off in that moment. So I had to kind of be like, okay, but what is it preparing me for? These are the questions that I ask myself instead of, you know, maybe going left, because I feel like I'm destined for something so much greater, but this person is in my way. Cutting them off could be, what if they were supposed to teach me something and I cut them off prematurely? You know what I'm saying? So I don't get the lesson, or I have to have that lesson delayed. You know what I'm saying? To whereas I could have got it now. So just a different perspective.
I,
But it's like, how do you
I
use your
trust
discernment to know
you.
whether or not? Because
Yeah,
then it's like, okay,
It's a
I can
level.
go ahead, CJ.
It's a level of trust. It is
that
Oh
part.
yeah,
there's
a
risk and
level of trust and
reward.
faith.
I mean that
Yeah.
it is what it is. Am I willing to risk what hypothetically could happen? I don't see that, but I do know this and feel this and understand this, and this is where I'm going. I've made the decision. That's just that, man.
And that part, and I didn't mean to cut you, but that part is right there. You made the decision. So there is no looking back. There is no what ifs. Yo, I made a decision. I'm keeping it moving.
I have
And
decided
that's it.
there's nothing that you can give me. As a matter of fact, you're giving me the ability to make a decision. Maybe that's what I'm learning, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
okay.
maybe
Okay.
I'm learning to cut it off, to stop eating the pork. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just maybe that's the opportunity. Maybe that's what I'm here to practice with you. Unfortunately, it could be
Mhm.
anything. It could be pork. It could be you know Apple computers. Maybe you don't want an iPhone no more. You want to do the green text. I don't know. You
Hey,
know what I mean?
Androids unite. Stop
Not the
playing.
green. Not
That's right.
here.
That's right. But I did want to go back to one of the things about emotional intelligence is the self-awareness that we were talking about. So it involves understanding your own emotions, strengths, limitations, values, and motives, to CJ's point. And then also it involves being conscious of the aspects of one's patterns, behaviors, and feelings. So to CJ's point, he's like, okay, I understand my pattern, my behavior and feelings. So if I don't want to drink anymore, I have to remove myself from any situation in which, because of my previous patterns, that I might go back into another pattern. And so I think that's important for us to kind of recognize, like when we're talking about this, like I know I need to not go to certain family events. If I see bald head men there, they might bother me. You see what I'm saying? But I don't have beef with my ex anymore. And I just to speak to that, I did the shadow work to understand what it was that I was still carrying around, so that when I realized I was carrying around something, now I've dealt with it. So I can be in the same space with him and not be annoyed with him. I wasn't mad about what happened before. I just hadn't resolved certain things. And once I was able to resolve certain things, that didn't show up in conversations with him. It didn't show up in conversations with my daughter about him. It didn't show up in these spaces. So that was important for me to be able to kind of navigate and understand. So it's a lot of steps involved in making sure that you are aware of your own emotions and how you're feeling and how you're responding. One of my mentor says, what is the story you want to tell when it's just a story to tell? So when you're in that space of maybe being angry or frustrated or, whatever you're emotionally feeling, how do you want to respond when it's just a story to respond, right? Do you want to be the person that hits somebody upside the head with an umbrella, allegedly? I don't know, but you have to think about it.
You know what? You just made me think of something. And the reason y'all are talking about like heart-wrenching subjects, right? Those individuals, Kyra, you're talking about your family members, right? And they're near and dear to your heart, right? Marcia, you talked about the bald-headed guy. I wish we could give him a different description, but
My kids are listening. I could give you a different description, but my kids are listening.
Wait a minute.
But what I noticed was the things that I was talking about were things that were a lot easier, right?
Mhm.
Like a business deal, right? Or
Right.
somebody at work, this kind of situation. But it's not that I haven't cut off people in my family or even those that were very, very, very close to me, like that. But the thing is it's a practice. Because I'm able to do it on the easier things, it becomes a muscle that I'm building.
Mm.
It becomes something that I'm aware of that is possible, right? Because I've done it on things that won't matter as much as the heart things. But now because I've done them so much, it doesn't necessarily mean that the heart things aren't going to be hard when they are. But at the same time, I know that it's possible.
Mhm.
Right. And because it's possible, hey, I mean, I'm not like, yo, bro, you better get it together. I'm cutting your ass off. I'm not like that, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. And my brother knows that that's not how this is. But at one point, it absolutely was. I was talking to my mom and I told her about the discussion. She actually listened to our last conversation and she was like, CJ, you had me laughing so much. She was like, do you remember when you started doing everything and I would start talking to you and you would just hang the phone up on me? I was like, what? She was like, yeah, you would. Like,
You've been cutting folks off for a minute now.
This is where we're at. This is what we're doing. And I'm not engaging in these kinds of conversations anymore. And you would literally hang the phone up on me. Mom, we was laughing about it. But that's how it is, right? Yeah, you made a choice that I'm not taking my mind there anymore because hey, who's addicted to gossiping? Just about everyone, right?
I just want you to know I couldn't have done that with Leslie, child. I wouldn't be here today.
Hey, I mean the thing is I wish I could give you the whole background, but if y'all familiar with this book, I talked about it last week, The Laws of Thinking. Bishop Bernard Jordan, that's the author in it. And I mean it's extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely powerful.
I mean, but I understand, like, and I'm glad that you pointed that out because, we've talked about family, we've talked about friends, we've talked about working situations. So I think that we've given a lot of opportunity for people to understand how to navigate these spaces.
I agree. I think we really hit this one. I had like a list of questions to ask y'all, but it just I started looking at the questions and I'm like, yeah, we kind of hit on those. I naturally like, whether it was me asking it or y'all asking it. And so no, this conversation was phenomenal. I think I got pretty passionate in it. I feel like y'all got pretty passionate in it as well.
I was all right.
That's the
I hope we help some people.
No doubt. I already
And-
know we helped each other.
and
Right, that part.
and check that. and check that, right? That in and of itself is emotional intelligence, right?
Mhm.
If you are to acknowledge when someone is triggered, right? You may not know if you're just meeting them or what have you that, before you say this thing, sometimes you should know, but sometimes you may not know that certain things like me shaving my head might be a triggering thing for a certain someone in the screen, right? That could be a triggering thing, but to acknowledge it
Oh, good, we
and
good.
to acknowledge it and know is what we're basically saying, right? Know thyself, and to Johannes' point, right? Um, no, you're not going to always know 100% of yourself. I think you can get 80%, 90% there, and then you're going to grow the next day. You're going to become something else the next day, and you have to learn that side of yourself as well. So, this is always Kelly said it's a growth mindset, right? Knowing
Mhm.
that you're growing. There's no such thing as stagnation in life. You are either growing or you or you're going the other way,
That's
right?
a fact. That's a fact.
That's just
right.
that, right? And so because of that, you'll always need to be needing to understand and learning yourself in that moment, right? Or in these new moments. And I think that's really important because of that, right? And some of the things that we're talking about is the things that are sometimes triggering to us are things that are actually inside of us, that are just reflecting outside of us,
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
be emotionally aware of yourself, knowing who you are, what you're going through at the moment, in the moment, right? But then also understanding how can you utilize this as a superpower to understand how others are feeling, right? Because how others are feeling is actually an indication to tell you exactly how they want to be treated in that moment. And that can be a very, very useful tool.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Very good.
And if I could just, just say one thing in closing, you know, just be mindful of your energy slash your effort, right? So just understand that you are in control of your energy and your effort. You know what I'm saying? In addition to that, you're also in control of your attitude, right? The attitude that you have be the attitude that you sometimes is gonna find, and it's gonna come right back at you. So people be like, we're gonna keep that same energy, gonna keep that same attitude, oh, it's gonna come right back to you, and also as far as like the response, what I'm saying, a lot of times people have to learn, we all do, myself included, gotta learn to respond appropriately and not a reaction. You know what I'm saying? So response as opposed to reacting, you know what I'm saying? And be mindful of your thoughts, you know what I'm saying? Because our thoughts, whether they're positive or negative, find their way out of our mouth. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's not the best thing. And lastly, our habits. You know what I'm saying? We're creatures of habit, both positively and negatively. So just be mindful of your habits. And that right there spells earth. So Earth Day, and also I just had to come with it. So that's what that is.
I love it.
I'm corny, I know, but it is what it is.
Love it. I love it.
We are
Thank-
also emotionally intelligent about how corny you are. I'm kidding.
You
I'm
know
kidding.
what? It'd be your own people throwing you under the bus. You see that? That's
Any,
what's good. Oh my goodness.
any other closing remarks, Kelly, Kyra, Marcia?
I think y'all summed it up really well.
Okay.
Appreciate this
Yeah,
conversation.
All right. All right. All right, folks. This has been the Gens, our authentic selves. Go grow your IQ. I mean EQ.
That's right.
But you
Y'all
might
be
grow your
great.
IQ in the process.
That is
That's
very true.
right.
Y'all be great.
Peace,
All
peace.
right. Take care.
That's hilarious.
The stream has stopped and